Evelyn, I'm making you this video because you know how awful I am with computers, and it's really hard to explain what I was trying to say, and hopefully this will make more sense. Now, this is just a rough, I printed it out, your drawing and the original drawing. It might not be exact in terms of the grid, but the main thing I wanted to show you were just a few things. Because some things some of the cubes got changed the wrong direction. They got a little bit more splitting out instead of going in. And the cubes are the same as the dots. The dots, the first thing you have to do is find the squares on the dots. The squares are either forward, which is flat, like these, or they're leaning, which is more of an angular square. So before we do anything, and I'm going to pretend this is mine and I'm marking it up. Maybe since you used red already, I'll switch to green. And there were a few things that just popped out that happened. And a lot of it is you can't see it on the print. Now when I printed it, it printed out great. But in the print that you have on the internet, it's very fuzzy in parts. The biggest problem was right here, the bottom of this number one side of this dice. I think because you couldn't see it, you made it up. When in reality, and I marked it on here, this dice, if you took a ruler, it's almost exactly, in fact, it is straight up and down. So the bottom of this one is straight up, just like the top of it. But somehow you got it going out. See how you have it going out? That was the first thing I noticed because this looked funny. This needs to be fixed first. And the reason is that this dot got to be too low or too high, or, and this might be going off the edge, an easier way to fix it is to get this to go like that. Do you see how you have this here? But in the picture it's straight up and down. So something you can do with a ruler or a pencil or anything, when something's vertical over here, drag it over and make this vertical over here. So by simply going like this, straight down, you can compare, and then look, and you can even draw on the actual printout. If you print a bunch of these out, you can actually draw on them. So that's the very most important thing that I saw. That was throwing that off. And instead of trying to guess where it ends if it's fuzzy, just put a line where you can see, and it goes in. You have it going, you have this line going out. So I basically turned this to this. That's an easy fix. Regardless of the grid, regardless of the placement, if you just make this vertical on the one, this is the one here. By making that vertical, what you've done now is you've connected this to this. That's the law of linear perspective. And then you've also connected it this way, whereas you had it flared out. So that's number one. All right. Next thing is this. I don't know what happened on the second version, but now you have this going out. It didn't do that before. So we want to do the same thing. Go over here and compare that angle by dragging it over here. So you can see now you have excess on the outside. You'll see it on my markups too. So if I drag this over here, that means I have to do this less angular. It's steeper in real life. You can even use tracing paper and to compare. Whatever you need to do. So now I can check this with that. Okay, that's better. So now there's two corrections I've made. In my case, I'll make the corrections in red. So go in and put a little X. You don't need that line. Go ahead and put a little X here. You don't need that triangular line. Boom, that's key right there. The next thing is the thickness of this. See how thick and tall this is and how long that line is? If you go like this and you put a vertical line, a big one, to match that, then you'll have the thickness of this, because you've got this here and this here. See how thick? It's like the sole of a shoe, and you have it as a sliver. So if you raise this up, this top line, to connect with the bottom line that you already have, this is a little steep and loopy, but it's close. So I'm just going to adjust it slightly. But see how now you have this thick side. It's like that whole, the side of the gumball. And then the top just kind of swoops up like you have it like that. That's fine. So this is what I mean is like the thickness of that. Okay, that was a second one. One more thing on the dice I just saw. See how the bottom of it goes this way? You have it more flat. So I'm going to use, I don't want to confuse you with the red. If I measure this to this, I can adjust this. This is something I just noticed that is not that big of a deal, but it will make a big difference. So now you have a little X, and this one, same thing, it parallels this, and so you have a little X. So all I've done right now is that little line gone, that little line gone, go up here, make this thicker, and that line. This was a huge part, this was the major part. All right, then the next thing I did was, looks good. Okay, circles, circle, circle, circles. When you're doing these buttons, we talked about the Frisbee. You're lucky on this side because you can go like this, and I definitely encourage you to do that. Compass is the easiest, but anything round, even if it's not the right size, I encourage you to place it where you think it is, over here, and then trace it by pressing down. Even if you have to move it a little, the point is that it's perfectly round, and then your buttons are not distorted. These in here. This one's a little smaller. I'm going to put this here, and you can draw them right through each other. See, already this looks better. It can be wobbly. Obviously I messed that one up, but you can see, okay, this one, no, that one you can't do because it's laying, but you can do this one, I can do this one. It's right about here. So all the blue I'm going to do are the ones that are flat. And even if you can't do that gestural movement, if you just trace something that's close in size, you've got 1, 2, 3. These are all flat. What else is flat? This is the main problem. See how it's wobbly? And the alternative to the gesture is this. I could probably do a bigger one here. Yeah, almost. Even if it's not the exact size, I can make it slightly bigger on this one because it goes behind. You'll see on what I said on here. You've got the dice bumped up against the button, and then you have this point, those awkward moments hitting the point. If you look here, this is in front of the button, as is this. The button is actually behind both dice. Yours is kind of stuck there. So we got to tuck this behind, and I mentioned that in the post too with my little picture. We need to push this forward and push this forward, but first we got to make the flat circle. See if I can find a better size. That's better. All right, so I'm going to tuck this behind. This will be the inner part. And even if I don't get it right, it's going to be a better circle than what was under here. That's the inside. Now I got to get the outside and just draw the whole thing. So now we've got this flat, perfect, facing forward button. It's slightly turned, but it's flat enough for that to work. Now we have to extend this in front like this. See how it goes in front and down? So in front and down. All I've done is shift it slightly over so that this tucks behind. Same with here. I'm going to shift this in front ever so slightly, and it'll look so much better. So that's why I was saying this is tucked behind. So basically this is behind here. It will look so much better. Just this, just what I've done so far. You've got your circles flat forward, you've got it tucked, and you've created corrections with your linear perspective and made that thicker. All that simple. Now, this, the 4 needs to be smack dab in the middle. So you divide this in half, basically until you find the center. And this can be done by folding, whatever. I'm just eyeballing it, but it should look like a pie made up of 4 even pieces. From there, that's when you do the square. That's going to be the 4. You see how your 4 is shifting to the right over here? So I can make a perfect square around, and this is what you're going to do on all of them. Make a perfect square in the middle. Now because this one is flat, it's easy. You're going to do the same thing on these. In the half, as squared off as you can, and if you really want to, you can measure the radius, and as long like you can say, okay, this is to here, this is to here, this is to here, this is to here. As long as you find that center point in each of these 1, 2, 3, 4, you'll be able to get the square. Now the square is where the dots are. On these, just put your dots on the squares. You have yours kind of tilted. See how they're kind of distorted? So if you do the square, you'll be able to get them where they go, even if they're not the right size. At this point, we just want it to look convincing. So now we have our 4 squares where they belong. You absolutely have to do the circle with the round object, and then you have to do the square in the middle. Find the center point first, and then look at these. Look how good it looks. It's perfect because you did it that way. And that works for these. Now this one doesn't have the 4, so those aren't as essential. Well, this one has, see on this one it's an angle. So I'm going to find the angle in the middle. It has to be in the middle. And that's how I know these fall on there. The closer the dot, the smaller. So if it's leaning, you're going to be doing a dot closer. But that goes off the edge really. So, all right. So okay. So that's the flats. This alone, just making that symmetrical and flat forward, is going to make a huge difference. These are the issues. Those are the focal point, and they looked funny. So fixing this and fixing this are the first step. Even if that's all you do, you're in good shape. This is a problem. This feels like it's just awkward. It looks flat, like almost like a plate of scrambled eggs or like prunes or something and on a plate, and you're seeing it from the ceiling. We don't want that. We have to make it lay like this. And the reason it looks like this is because all 4 of these are the same size, and because you have it drawn flat. Although you do have the oval part, so you got that down. The size is perfect. We just have to figure out a way to get this to lay flat. The reason is this oval is random. It's just, it is ovally, but it's going the wrong way. So you want to trace with a pencil. Come over here and actually draw on your printout. Feel how it looks. Feel how it falls. You can see how mine is longer this way. Yours is like a circle. So when I redraw this, I want to draw an oval this way. And if it feels weird, just go back over here and feel this again. What does that feel like? Of course, you'll be drawing it larger, but see how that is different than what was behind it? And then when you do the background, the next layer, this is the key. This is the key right here. See the height of this? See how narrow that is? Look at the height of this. the front is twice the height and width as this. That's how you create the lean. So when I go to do my outside circle or oval, I can't do it symmetrically. I have to do it narrow here and wide here. So if you put a little thing and go, okay, that's that way, and then over here it's this way. So now when I do this outer one, it is an oval, but it's symmetrical. So if I find the center here and try to keep it in that area, but know that it's narrower here and taller here, but you can't bulb it out. It has to be wrapped around this same, and you can keep filling with colored pencils. But see, I don't want to fill it the same. It has to end here. See how I'm going narrower in the back? Anything further away is going to be narrower, harder to see, smaller. Anything closer to your eyes, thicker. So now the problem is the middle. But see how we've now fixed the outside? Thick, narrow, oval, oval, not circle. Main thing was that you had these two the same thickness. Last thing on this, and this is true of any button, although these look pretty good, you're going to take a line through, just like you did on the this and this. It's on an angle, but it's still that T. So I'm going to go like this. It's just, you do the same thing if you were doing a portrait. And try to find the center. And so you see it's thicker here, and then it gets narrower back here. But the main thing is I now have this. From here, I draw the square that I did here. The square here is not going to be flat. It goes out. See how this goes out very slightly? You can even exaggerate it. See how the square tapers? Anytime it leans, you have to taper the square. And better to exaggerate that than to try to make it regular square. Now see how that is that? This is different than this. Now all you have to do is put your dots. Now these dots are ovals, and you're going to be bigger ones on the left, smaller ones on the right. So even if you aren't looking at the picture, it's the same thing. Square facing flat, smack dab in the middle, 4 dots, same size. This one's circles. This one's ovals, but the oval has to point up to the left, and the oval behind it has to be thicker here and narrower here. You still have to make your square around the center point, but it has to go towards each other. It can't be a flat square. And then you make your ovals in the front along the line, slightly bigger than those. Even if you get part of this, it's going to make all the difference, I promise. All the difference. So that was my things. Oh, I really hope that helps. It's looking really good.